So yeah, welcome everyone. Today we'll be going through Hasu's recent GOOSE submission. So for those of you confused by the GOOSE name, it stands for Guided Open Objective Setting Exercise, and it's a framework that has been implemented to try to, I guess, come to terms with the short and long-term goals for the Lido DAO. And what we'll be discussing today is Hasu's recent submission. We'll let him and Victor walk through it, what he has outlined for the Lido DAO, as well as take on any questions that there might be. So I'll start by introducing the guest today. So we'll start, from the Lido side is Victor. Victor, would you like to jump on, introduce yourself?
Hey, welcome. Happy to be here, and thank you for intro. I'm head of on-chain ops from Lido contributor teams, contributors team, and here to discuss GOOSE proposal with Hasu.
Perfect, and that leads us to Hasu.
Yep. Hi, I'm Hasu. I'm a strategic advisor to the Lido DAO. I also work with Flashbots as head of strategy. I'm for a long time working in area of blockchain security and staking, mining, MEV. So I'm very passionate and very deep about this kind of blockchain infrastructure.
Amazing. There are rumors going around that you also control the Gwart account on Twitter, but we won't get into that today.
Yeah, I think I saw Gwart for a second here, maybe in this chat. I'm not sure. But I can neither confirm nor deny.
Well, very nervous now. But yeah, to get straight into it, we'll start with a short introduction of GOOSE. So what it means, how it was created, and what implications it might have for Lido. And then after that, we'll move on to a proposal outline, so running through Hasu's recent submission, and we'll finish it off with a Q&A in case there are any questions, either about GOOSE as a framework or Hasu's specific suggestions for Lido. And on that note, Victor, let's kick it off.
Thank you. I wanted to take like a minute to basically walk what GOOSE itself is about. The gist is it's pretty hard for the DAO to agree on goals because DAO is by definition a decentralized thing, and to agree on something, you have to have someone actually doing a proposal. So in order for that to work and to happen, the contributors developed proposed the process of such proposals to be made, which we call GOOSE, and which later DAO has approved by the snapshot vote. Basically, that's the process which is aimed for yearly cadence. And the GOOSE proposal is targeted and focused on the way for the Lido DAO to look for goals and agree of those. Basically, that's the flow goes as follows. Now, there is a 1 month long period for the goals proposals to be published to get DAO's feedback and the community around DAO's feedback, and to get to the vote. So basically, whatever proposals we do have would be going to a snapshot vote for the DAO to pick the set of goals. It as a community, as a decentralized organization, it feels like a proper thing to go for. So that's about it. And today we wanted to talk through Hasu's proposal about goals for Lido DAO for 1 year and 3 year periods.
Yeah, it sounds perfect. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hasu, do you want to jump into to your proposal and explain how how you got to the different parts of it?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. So I apologize in advance. I'm actually have a cold today, so I might be, my voice might be more nasal than usual, and also the brain not working as well. But I will do my best. So um, I think from the beginning, the starting point really was to look at the mission and vision of the Lido DAO. And this was a proposal that had been drafted carefully over a long time and passed a couple months ago. And for anyone who hasn't read that, I think it's really important to look at, to understand what the Lido DAO is all about. And I just read it out, for the sake of that. So the Lido's purpose, or Lido DAO's purpose, is to keep Ethereum decentralized, accessible to all, and resistant to censorship. In order to make staking simple, secure, and decentralized, and to create a world in which Ethereum is the coordination and value layer of the internet. So that's really the starting point, and that came first. So the DAO discussed that for a long time, and then ended up voting basically this particular framing. And so how I arrived at this proposal for 3 and 1 year goals was to start from that, but then also look at, okay, where are we today? And I did something that's pretty common in strategy. It's called a SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the DAO and for the protocol. And in my proposal, I give like a short glimpse basically into that, like abstracting out what I thought were the kind of the most important and most salient points. So I mean, I think it's in many ways it's kind of obvious where Lido stands, right? Lido is by far the market leader in liquid staking. Liquid staking itself is kind of very dominant and for users, like much more valuable than other forms of staking. Lido has the most users, has the most integrations. It has deepest liquidity against ETH and stablecoins. It has never had any kind of meaningful security incident, so it has excellent security culture and branding with users. But I think the weaknesses are equally kind of well defined. When you talk to people about Lido on crypto Twitter, then you will very quickly hear about them. So it's the permissioned node operator set. I think we're now up to 38 members after the recent vote, but it's still like a small set, and it's still permissioned by the DAO governance. And the other side really, I think, is the governance itself. So there's this like excellent post from Mike Nuda from the Ethereum Foundation. For anyone who hasn't read it, I would really recommend it. It came out about a week or two ago, and it goes into the exact kind of failure modes that exist in Lido today and in the DAO. You can look at that and basically see what there really isn't that much that can go wrong at like the protocol side, but the DAO has a lot of power today, and so when there's kind of a bug in the voting or like a hostile takeover, then that can be really problematic because many contracts, for example, can be replaced with malicious ones. And so I think really like the main weaknesses of the protocol lie sort of in the area of governance isn't decentralized enough, the node operator set isn't big enough, and it's also not currently permissionless. And that makes it pretty clear where the kind of the opportunities for Lido are, because really the core product is extremely good. It's the most simple, the most secure, already the most used, has the biggest network effect. But there are these very, very justified concerns about Lido when it reaches a certain market size, like market penetration. And none of these matter when Lido is, at 5% market share or at 10% market share, but they totally matter when Lido is at, 40 or 50% market share. And so I think Lido doesn't need to change very much in terms of the product in order to reach more users. But it has the opportunity to, I think, invest a lot in its security, like even more in its security than it already does, in order to realize that vision. So I think that was really, that was really like the starting point. So the realization that if you look at the staking industry in general, and I think this is like something that we've always believed, that's not related to this proposal at all. I've written about this, I think 2 to 3 years ago. But when you look at the liquid staking market or the staking market, then it's very clear that liquid staking is the most dominant form of staking, and liquid staking really competes as money, right? So like a liquid staking token is effectively used as money, and so it has a lot of network effect. And same as money, I think there's a very high chance that there will be one very dominant player in the liquid staking market. And so really kind of the starting point is that you need to grow. Like if you want to survive, you need to grow. And if you want to protect Ethereum, then you need to make sure that the dominant player is a decentralized staking pool, and it's not a centralized one or like a centralized consortium of different players. And so really growth is the number one priority, I would say, like growth in order to get to the size, in order to defend the market against like a centralized player taking over, and security, because security is needed to protect Ethereum at this scale. So yeah, I would say if you only take away 2 things about the proposal, then it's security and it's growth.
I see. Thank you. That's like that is a wide context of what the proposal is about. So reading it up now, basically the main goals, like the 3 goals proposed for 3-year period. Lido has effective decentralized governance as the first one. Lido attracts the best validator set in the market as the second. And as a third goal, STF is the most used token in the Ethereum ecosystem. Would you mind going like diving a little deeper into everyone? And if so, why start with governance? I think like you've touched upon that in context, but in general, what do you think the good goal would look like here?
Yeah, so I think starting with governance was really, this was kind of the most obvious thing to me from the first moment when I started researching this and talking to people, because as I was alluding to, the fact that Lido governance has so much power as it has today, I think is a problem for Ethereum, and it's an impediment to its growth, and it needs to grow in order to protect Ethereum. So it's really between a rock and a hard place in that sense. And so usually when you look at what you should do, there's like one thing that stands above everything else, and to me this is kind of like better governance for Lido DAO. And it's not a new idea, right? So I think there's this proposal that's called dual governance, which basically gives staked ETH holders the ability to veto any decisions that the DAO makes. And getting to dual governance de-risks Lido dramatically from a governance standpoint, and de-risks Ethereum dramatically from a governance standpoint. And I think when that is solved, then it's like in many ways, I think all of these risks are a much smaller concern. And so the first key result that I wrote down is staked ETH can participate in governance, because then it's much harder to vote in any kind of proposal that would go against Ethereum, that would go against the stakers. The second one is a little bit self-referential, because as as a DAO, it is very difficult to kind of decentralize, like be maximally decentralized, but still have the ability to set goals and for the different contributors to like all run in the same direction. Usually the way that companies solve this is, there's a CEO and they, say what to do, but you can't have that in a DAO. And this is a problem that all the DAOs are struggling with. And so second goal is that goal setting is decentralized yet efficient. And I mean, you can say much more about that, but as I understand, GOOSE is like a proto version of that, right? It's kind of the first, minimally viable attempt at a goal setting process that is both decentralized, yet maintains some of that efficiency that you can have when let's say you have a foundation that just does everything, or you have like a maintainer company that just does everything, which is effectively how most, if not all, other DAOs solve this problem. But like, I think that's not. I think we can try something else. Like, I think we can do better. So I think that's why we're trying this. The third key result is governance is open and transparent and runs smoothly. So I think if you look at governance today, it's I think there was a good concern that was brought up recently by Ben Edgington, and I thought it was really like a lot of proposals in Lido DAO, but like really in every DAO is you're always scrambling kind of to get quorum, and you're really struggling to activate voters, and this makes it much more difficult also to defend against a bad proposal that goes through. And the reason is people are not, it's just very costly for people to vote. They're not really incentivized to do it. It's hard, it's complicated. You take a lot of context in order to understand what you're even voting on. And so I think a lot goes into getting people to vote more frequently and like in more of the votes, and also understand what they're voting for and have a really easy time to understand and audit that what goes on chain is actually what they think goes on chain and what they want, right? And so I think there's a lot of things here that you can do in order to improve this process. And then the final one that's related to governance is having an increasingly diverse contributor base, because a DAO that only has one company that kind of does everything, I think you become really dependent on that. And that's not, to me, decentralized. So I think there's an end game that I think the DAO is moving towards, and all DAOs will eventually move towards, where the DAO is really, it's just like people in the center that kind of set like high level direction, and they set a budget and they set some key results. But then you have some kind of open process where there's many different companies that all contribute to the maintenance and the development of the protocol, and they have to compete with each other also on quality and on price. And it's really just the DAO saying what should be done on a high level, and then other companies kind of bid for the right to execute these things for the DAO. And so I think within 3 years, I think it's quite realistic that we can get to like a much more diverse base of contributors than today. And I'll stop here. Let me know if like that's the kind of level of granularity that you like when we go into the other goals, if I should be like a little bit more brief.
I see. I think that's a great level, to be honest, and we'll have Q&A session at the end. So what I would propose to go for next is to look for second like big goal and big direction, which is Lido attracts the best validator set in the market. Could you touch upon how it like follows from the mission and purpose of Lido, and why focus lies there, and like what actually is this one about?
Yeah, so this one is really about expanding the validator set, not just of Lido, but of Ethereum itself. Because if you want to keep Ethereum decentralized and censorship resistant, and for Ethereum to be really incredibly neutral, I think small stakers just play an incredibly important role, because they, like big players, they always react extremely strongly to incentives because they have to, right? So a big staker would always do what is most profitable for the network. And we have a long history of kind of, seeing the evidence for that. And in many ways, this is why I like working on the staking layer, because like just incentives dictate everything. It's very easy to think like 5-10 years into the future, what is going to happen. But then you have the smaller players, and they are much more ideological about the network, right? They are really here to, they don't care about like 1-2% like in performance, because for them that's not a lot of money in their life, right? But they do care about helping Ethereum, upholding the values, and also like being hands-on, doing things themselves, really like validating every state transition and so on. And so I think for Ethereum it's extremely important that these stakers, for them it's made as easy as possible to participate, because that's what's best for Ethereum. However, I think what Lido did in the beginning, so we have seen in many ways, we've seen like the two approaches. I think we have seen like, we've seen kind of Lido on the one side, and Lido was all about, in the beginning, just allow more people to come in and stake, make the protocol really scalable. And the only way you do that effectively is by having professional node operators do this. Because professional node operators, like every network that has staking, has like at least 95% professional node operators, if not more. You have other protocols, for example, Rocket Pool, and they say we really put the solo staker first. We're going to start with that, and I think that's also very valid and very important. So like massive kudos to them, I think, for making it easier for solo stakers. But this approach is also much slower, right? So because there's way fewer solo stakers, and working with solo stakers is much more expensive, and so ultimately what it comes down to, this approach is much less scalable. And if you go back 2 years, 1 year, so before the merge was about 1 year ago, but the beacon chain was already live, I think, for 1.5 years before that. So it was becoming extremely clear that like the way that all of the incentives were set up, that basically the solo staking could not scale as a concept in order to provide the service to many people. It could not match the demand for staking that was there from users who had Ethereum to stake. And so I think what Lido did was just extremely good for Ethereum and extremely smart, because they focused on the scalable approach to build a protocol that could actually compete with centralized exchanges. So to go back like 2 years, I think if Lido had done what Rocket Pool had done, and you have two like Rocket Pool and Lido, side by side serving solo stakers, then the situation you're in today is that Coinbase doesn't maybe have like 20% of the stake, which I think is probably where it's at today. It would have like 50%, and I really believe that. So and Binance, I think, is at like maybe like 7-10% or something. They might be at like 20-30%. So really the market would already be, kind of lost at this stage. And so all of that said, I think now Lido has really kind of enough power, and like the market is in many ways secure enough that I think now is the right time to open up the protocol and make it as easy as possible to also participate as a solo staker. And not just as a solo staker, because I think we have seen this like much more comprehensive vision coming out of the DAO, which is called a staking router, and like the vision that kind of goes along with that. We're really very similar to what I said about governance, how you have the kind of very thin DAO in the middle, and then a lot of service providers kind of at the edges that actually do all of the execution. The way that you can do it with the staking router is you just have the staking router in the middle, and it's governed, like minimally governed by the DAO. And then anybody can develop different modules. And these modules can ask basically for stake from the DAO. And these can be permissionless modules with different parameters. They can be restaking modules. They can be DBT modules. They can also be permissioned modules that, say maybe, this module is, like we have, for example, like it's permission and we have insurance, right? So we're like giving you kind of like a very high promise of performance, but then another says, this is one where like only solo stakers can participate and so on. So you can have many modules and they can all compete for stake. And you have a DAO in the middle that only says, oh yeah, this is how I think, like very high level, like how stake should be distributed. And that kind of makes the whole staking market much more efficient and democratic. And it also like reduces the governance overhead for the DAO. So it really is a win on multiple fronts, I think, for Ethereum. And so like this is basically like all of the goals, all of the key results in the second goal, Lido attracts the best validator set in the market, are really derivative of this staking router vision and describe how it should work. So the key results is, there should be permissionless entry. So there should be at least like 1, 2, 3 modules that make it basically very easy, like that anybody can, can stake with and get additional stake from the DAO. The ambitious goal is to have, by 2026, 5,000 node operators, and not civils, but like actually like unique node operators. We want them to uphold.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Performance effectiveness ratio that's better than 80% of the market. So not only be decentralized, but also really, really be extremely competitive on performance, because that's what you need, right? That people follow the incentives, and you do have to stay competitive on performance on APR, like if you want to stay ahead. The fourth key result is risk mitigation by design. So I think this is means a couple of things. So one is like a very strong kind of security culture around like auditing and controlling like the different modules, that there's no way like to create any faults, like get any problems for users. But it's also about risk management. And so I think once you have this DAO in the center that basically does the capital allocation between different modules, then I think you want some, and hopefully like automated kind of risk frameworks that basically say, oh, what's like the DAO's exposure? What is like our staker's exposure and Ethereum's exposure to like different things that can happen, right? And you really try to minimize like being overexposed kind of to one particular event, to like, maybe you have like limits on, oh, this is like the maximum we allow like all node operators to use like this client or be in this region or use this insurance provider and so on, right? So I think this is really about like spreading, the risks that exist over like a huge surface. And the final key result is called free market for validation. And this basically means that the modules should itself be competing for stake. They should always be trying to become more secure, more performant, overall like better for the users. And so you're really creating these incentives, very, very, very healthy incentives for the node operator market to improve in order to get more stake. Yeah. And that would summarize the second goal.
I see. Thank you. So a lot of work to be done on like making the validator set not only wider and more diverse, but to make it permissionless and working towards Lido being a force for good in the whole Ethereum network. That said, the third goal states STF is the most used token in the Ethereum ecosystem. So all that work being said, you feel that's like the third but major goal for Lido is to grow. Is that right?
Yeah. So growth is very important because of the strong network effects that are involved in the liquid staking market. So I really believe that if you stop growing today as Lido, then what would basically happen is that there's new stake coming in, and then at some point like another staking protocol takes over, and or not even a protocol. I think like the bigger risk is actually from something like Coinbase, Alluvial, or something like that. Especially something that targets institutional staking, because I think institutional staking will be basically a user segment that will be growing a lot. I think as Ethereum becomes more mainstream, I think it's quite likely that, if not within like this year, then I think Q1 or Q2 next year, I think we'll see like Ethereum ETFs approved, and just like Ethereum becoming more established in kind of institutional channels, whether it's Vanguard, Fidelity. I think within a year, I think many people would be buying Ethereum through more probably through these channels than like on kind of the ones that we know today. I think this is kind of the natural evolution of many asset classes, that they become financialized and then like existing channels kind of take over. I think when you see ETFs, I think you will maybe in the beginning you will have like unstaked ETF, but I think very quickly, I think you will have ETFs for staked ETH as well, just because it's just a superior type of asset, right? I think you can hold ETH, you have the same liquidity, but you still get the staking rewards. And it's just like a tremendous value proposition, right? So I think that it's just a huge fight, not just for Lido. I think it's a huge fight for Ethereum itself, that actually they have a decentralized staking pool as a contender to also be able to win customers like that. And I can almost like not say like highly enough like how important I think this is for Ethereum and for Lido, that I think Lido is really the only player that has any kind of institutional offering, I think, in terms of the security and the like the liquidity also that is needed to serve like really large customers. And I think if you don't do that, then it's just like we're seeing that already. I think we're seeing that in like smaller competitors that are really strongly positioning in order to serve the institutional market, that are trying to create the memes that ETFs could only be served, like they must absolutely kind of use like exclusively KYC providers, for example. And these memes are just like incredibly toxic and dangerous for Ethereum. And so that's why I think it's very important to rally behind one decentralized player that can also compete here for this market. Because I think if you lose that market, then I won't say it's like lights out for Ethereum, but I think just keeping the staking layer decentralized will just become much, much harder. And so that's why you can't stop growing here. Like you have to keep growing, because the growth essentially is growth for a liquid staking protocol means more value for users. Why? Because just the asset becomes more and more liquid, it becomes like more and more used in more different protocols. It just becomes better money, right? So think about a type of money that is accepted by 1 million people versus like 1,000 people, right? I think with like every order of magnitude of users that you can add, I think the product just becomes that much more better. And so in 3 years, I think 50% of stakers choosing to stake with Lido. I think that's the North Star. Competitive network rewards. I think network effect is also strongly related. I think it's like payments is a use case, DeFi is a use case, but trading also is a use case. So I think for staked ETH, basically to take over like all of the trading pairs that I think ETH has today, I think that would be a goal, and that basically requires like I think like creating the necessary kind of liquidity incentives, and like you need to, I think, to bootstrap these things in the beginning before it then it can really like sustain itself once there's enough demand to trade in these pairs. The fourth goal is zero incidents with monetary impact to stakers. So I think just security is just like so important for stakers and for Ethereum, and it's also very, very important for the brand itself, right? I think like staking is very much about the lindiness and trust. So because if you put your stake in a protocol like Lido or some other provider, then what you like, this is like not a kind of high velocity activity. You really say, oh, I'm trusting this I'm trusting this provider with my asset, right? My valuable ETH for many years. And so I think security is just tremendously important. And I think it becomes more and more important the bigger you are. So that's why I think the security culture, like maintaining this and upholding this, is just very key. And then, yeah, the final one is institutions use Lido to stake. And that for me really kind of means to double down on this fact that I think the institution segment will grow a lot. And I think if you can't have a decentralized contender, if you can't have a decentralized horse in this race, then I think it's very likely that it will all go to basically like KYC primarily in the US, etc. Centralized providers, and that's something that I think would just be extremely bad for Ethereum. So that's the third goal. So the first two goals are really about security. One's about governance and one's about like expanding the validator set. And then or you could say they're about decentralization. I think that's maybe more accurate. And then the third goal is about growth, because growth means value to users and it means defensibility in the market from centralized competitors.
Thank you. I feel like we are tight on schedule, so wanted to ask one more question and proceed to Q&A, to pass the mic to listeners. So the last question I have, your proposal lists three main goals. Three goals, and has a more detailed list of things to focus under a single year, like in 2024, which is in proposal. But among those, and among other things you thought about, you researched for, are there anything like valuable things which hadn't made it to the list, which feel like a good idea, but you've discarded as not something we get like Lido probably should focus on?
Yeah, so I think the biggest debate for like me internally, but also with other people, I think the direction that I put in there is not uncontentious. I think in many ways, I think neither inside Lido, DAO, nor outside. Because I think a lot of people are feeling, I think the pressure, from the community to say, oh yeah, should Lido self-limit, at this size? And if it does, what does that mean? So should Lido, for example, be focusing on other chains that also have staking? Should it be focusing on Solana and Polygon and like all of the other like proof of stake chains that are coming online, right? I think all like the layer 2s will all have their own. Many of them have already said they will have their own forms of staking. Should that be a market, that Lido goes into? So like horizontal scaling, but like across many chains is one idea, right? But I think really for me, I keep going back to this thing that I like have an extreme conviction in, which is just that there's an extreme network effect in the liquid staking market, and it's pointless to compete in 10 markets. Any market that you don't win, sooner or later you will be losing, because there's only room for like one or two players, I think, at the end of the day. And so Ethereum is the most important market for staking. So important for us, in fact, that the DAO has voted to like align its entire mission around it. And it has also over the past year been like shutting down, I think, all but one of its kind of Lido on X staking kind of on other chains, right? So I think that's why this like singular focus on Ethereum for me was really the only option. And the other thing was, well, how should Lido DAO be doing other things on Ethereum? And really, you can like think about many things. Say like, should Lido DAO be doing a stablecoin? Should it be doing like a lending market? Should it be doing its own, DEX pools? Should it be doing like a wallet? Should it be doing like its own restaking? I think these are all, really good options. But it wasn't, for me, not interesting. Why? Because the decentralization, I think, stands above everything else. I think like Lido's product is already good enough. I think it gets better mostly as more people use it and like it becomes more liquid. But it doesn't need a lot of kind of bells and whistles, and it's not clear like how Lido also can do these things better than other protocols that are operating independently. And I think it keeps going back to like you want to build the most secure and most decentralized protocol possible, because that's what it takes to like grow to a bigger size, and that unlocks like actual value for users. And the way you do this is really by making the protocol as thin and as easy to understand as possible. And so those are like the two reasons why I think for me at least, like scaling like to other chains, not interesting. I think it's all about Ethereum. I think if you win Ethereum, then that's the most important thing for crypto. And then the other thing, like, should you be doing kind of vertical integration on Ethereum? Should you be going into other parts of the value chain for users? I also think, like, firmly no. I think this will make like the protocol much more difficult to understand and to audit. And yeah, I think really Lido should like have a very, very narrow scope, as narrow as possible, in order to still like do the service that it creates for users. And so, yeah, those two were like, I think the two biggest alternatives that I ended up discarding.
Got it. Thank you so much. If we can have some time, let's go for Q&A. So it's not only me asking things. Folks, request for mic, please.
I think we have one person here now. I think. Welcome.
Hey, yeah, Lutz.eth here from Aragon. Just thought I'd throw a question in there. And just, I've been quite impressed with how steadfast the Lido DAO and ecosystem has been. And how do you guys do that? In the face of a lot of questions and a lot of pressure from the industry as a whole, how do you as a DAO, as people working together, stay steadfast on your beliefs and what you really want to build?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's a great one. I'm also very impressed with the DAO. I think how steadfast it is in its beliefs among like a lot of criticism, I think, from the external community. I think it's like the DAO is doing just this insanely important job for Ethereum. And I think there's a lot of people actually kind of really supporting that, and also being grateful that Lido exists and that Lido does what it does. But it's like a less popular thing. It's more popular to say that in private than in public, I think, today. And that is a problem, I think, that we're trying to change. But I would say that, yeah, Lido has a lot of supporters. And I think this team is, or this DAO with like the contributors, I think is just very, very mission driven. And when you have a clear like mission and vision for what you want to achieve, then it's you can really focus on that. It becomes much easier to just like blend out the kind of naysayers and like the critics. Not to say that those are not very important. I think all of the criticism is really deeply reflected, I think, in the goals that are set out. Not only because of that, but I think also we also made posts in the like blog posts in the past that laid out, I think, what the vision is for Lido, and permissionless staking was always on there. Removing as much governance as possible was always on there. Introducing like governance safeguards was always on there. So I think this vision for what Lido DAO should become, like the most decentralized staking pool possible, that still competes with the centralized incumbents. To me, that vision has been there basically from the start, and I would like attribute a lot, I think, of the resilience and attracting the people who care deeply about that. I would like attribute to this really like mission-driven culture that exists in the DAO.
Great, thanks. That's been very evident seeing you guys all on Twitter. So, great work.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to throw in here as a Lido contributor is I'm really happy to see more Lido contributors coming to Twitter, coming to public comms, and like being more visible. and making progress towards Lido's mission and vision more visible. So that's a pretty basically that's something we wanted to see for quite some time, and now team is like feels more ready to do that. We're striving to have as open and like as transparent context as possible, which like definitely could be improved, but it is visible as is. But I'm really happy to see that like the team start pulls towards being more visible in a sense of how the efforts of the contributors are working towards making Ethereum more decentralized.
Yeah, so in the 1 year goal, it's we didn't chat about, it's not as important, I think, as like the high level for people to understand the high level vision, but in the 1 year goals, there's a key result that basically says, it's about education, about educating the Ethereum community more about, how staked ETH is a public good. It's not like, it's really something that's built primarily like in order to help Ethereum and not to make money. And I think that's extremely important. And so I think, this driving this narrative and like explaining how Lido is not trying to centralize Ethereum. I think it's such a wrong narrative. The exact opposite is true. But I think that like more education, I think, is required in order to really drive that point home.
Thank you. We have another question, Spada.
Hey guys, Chris from Badger here. Big fan of goal setting, both for DAOs, businesses, humans in general, and I think the collective goal setting exercise will help align all the groups participating in the DAO. I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts on what comes after that. I think mobilization and action against goals and direction has been one of the most challenging things for, or at least efficient mobilization of it for on-chain organizations and collectives of individuals. So interested to hear, what comes next, I guess would be the core question.
Hasu?
Oh, yes. I mean, you're the architect of the GOOSE process. As I was curious if you want to speak to that.
Let me take this one then. So the gist is, in order to have efficient governance, one wants, like, the thing you start from is goal setting. So that's what the Hasu's proposal is about, what the whole GOOSE process is for. The thing is, it's like it takes quite some time to figure out what other pieces DAO has to build and how to build those in a decentralized manner. So the idea I'm running with at the moment is basically looking to build a repeatable process of like a repeatable and decentralized process of setting up the goals, making the system of assessing the progress towards those goals, and making up the system of basically empowering teams and groups of people to progress, to do work towards those. So those are, in my opinion, three main puzzle pieces to be built. And as I've mentioned, building them out, drafting them in a way which both provides efficiency. So basically, you want to have clear goals, and you want those goals to be shared by the DAO and by different teams of like contributing towards DAO's goals. Apart from that, you want like to have the teams working on, and we do have like different multiple Lido contributors working towards Lido's mission, not like now focusing on working towards Lido's goals. And we want the DAO to have a way to basically weigh in and say whether the whether the progress is adequate, and whoever the funding and providing the resources to pull it off is sufficient. So though at least those two things, in my opinion, would be something to solve for. But currently, the first thing is to have the to get to the position where Lido has agreed on goals, and then contributors, whatever, basically, I would say that contributors would be aligning internal work projects, processes, and whatnot to make them happen, to work towards those.
Cool. Thanks.
One another thing to mention, while the processes takes quite some time, the current contributors budget request is ending by the end of this year. So one could expect the ask for next year's budget to be live on forums before the end of year, and the snapshot about that to be formed as well. What exact form would it take? We'll see. But those are done as DAO proposals either way. Those are done only as something DAO votes on. So that would be immediate step after the goal setting snapshot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So you see that as an exercise after the goal setting is kind of finalized?
Yes, I think so. The main reason being you want, whether you have the process built out or not, you want your budget, basically if you are asking DAO for funds, you want to show what kind of progress towards DAO's goals would it make. So whatever you do, if you are asking for funding, you basically could be expected to show what for and what would you be working towards.
Yeah, agreed. That's why I asked. Obviously, being able to work against and then evaluate the performance against those specific goals over whatever time frame is going to be critical for evaluating the results of those different contributors and the money being spent from the DAO on it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question.
I think we have time for one more. There's one more question.
It feels we don't have any more questions. So thank you so much for joining, Hasu. Thank you so much for outlining the proposal. We would share the docs and relevant links in Twitter afterwards. Thank you so much, and please weigh in, take a look on the proposal on forum, and weigh in with any comments you would have. See you around. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for coming and spending your time. And yeah, I think I would love your comments on the proposal so it can be made better.